Hi, my name's Sam from WTM Sydney. I just wanted to talk about an aspect of Jeremy Griffith's explanation of the human condition. In particular, I wanted to talk about part 8.11b of Freedom, the End of the Human Condition, obviously by Jeremy, in which he examines the relationship of men and women under the duress of the human condition. And within that broader topic, I want to talk about paragraph 778, in which Jeremy talks about the concept of men attacking the innocence of animals. So what I wanted to do was just read a brief extract from Freedom, from that paragraph I just mentioned, and then read a short extract from the novel The Story of an African Farm by the denial-free thinker Olive Shreiner from South Africa, and then talk a little bit about how I relate deeply to what's described in both those portions. And then I just wanted to link that back with why it is that I believe, the explanation of the human condition that Jeremy Griffith's putting forward, it's, if you like, how it's unique and why it is that only it can address the destructive symptoms and the manifestations of the human condition. So first of all, I just wanted to start with this extract, as I say, from chapter 8.11b, and this is of paragraph 778 of Freedom. And I'm not going to read the whole paragraph. This is me just diving in part of the way through. And I'm just going to jump in. So it reads, men attacked animals because their innocence, albeit unwittingly, unfairly criticised men's lack of innocence. It condemned their upset, aggressive lives. Also, by attacking, killing and dominating animals, men were demonstrating their power, which was a perverse way of demonstrating their worth as humans. If men could not rebut the accusation that they were bad, they could at least find some relief from that guilt by demonstrating their superiority over their accusers. The exhibition of power was a substitute for explanation. So that's, like I say, from paragraph 778. And then I just wanted to read this. It's like a person recounting a particular story. What it's to do with, it's probably pretty self-explanatory, but I'll just read it out in the sense that basically you've got a young guy, this is probably maybe early 19th century, and they're driving some oxen up a hill. This is in South Africa, up a steep hill with a heavy load. And I'll just read it and then attempt to sort of talk about it in context. It's a little bit long, but I think you'll get the point. So again, just diving in without trying to context it too much, it begins. A convict or a man who drinks seems something so far off and horrible when we see him, but to himself he seems quite near to us and like us. We wonder what kind of a creature he is, but he is just we, ourselves. We are only the wood. The knife that carves us is the circumstance. And then he begins to recount this story. I do not know why I kept on working so hard for that master. I think it wasn't the oxen. It was as the oxen come every day and stand by the yokes. They do not know why. Perhaps I would have been with him still. But one day we started with loads for the diamond fields. The oxen were very thin now, and they had been standing about in the yoke all day without food, while the wagons were being loaded. Nor far from the town was a hill. When we came to the foot, the first wagon struck fast. I tried for a little while to urge the oxen, but I soon saw the one span could never pull it up. I went to the other wagon to loosen that span to join them in front, but the transport rider who was lying at the back of the wagon jumped out. And this is what he said, they shall bring it up the hill, and if half of them die for it, they shall do it alone, he said. He was not drunk, but in a bad temper, for he had been drunk the night before. He swore at me and told me to take the whip and help him. We tried for a little time, then I told him it was no use, they could never do it. He swore louder and called to the leaders to come on with their whips, and together they lashed. There was one ox, a black ox, so thin that the ridge of his backbone almost cut through his flesh. It is you, devil, is it, that will not pull, the transport rider said. I will show you something. He looked like a devil. He told the boys to leave off flogging. and he held the ox by the horn and took up a round stone and knocked its nose with it till the blood came. When he had done, they called to the oxen and took up their whips again, and the oxen strained with their backs bent, but the wagon did not move an inch. So you won't you? He said. I will help you. He took out his clasp knife and ran it into the leg of the trembling ox 3 times up to the hilt. Then he put the knife in his pocket, and they took their whips. The oxen's flanks quivered, and they foamed at the mouth. Straining, they moved the wagon a few feet forward, then stood with bent backs to keep it from sliding back. From the black ox's nostril, foam and blood were streaming onto the ground. It turned its head in an anguish and looked at me with its great starting eyes. It was praying for help in its agony and weakness, and they took their whips again. The creature bellowed out aloud. If there is a God, it was calling to its master for help. Then a stream of clear blood burst from both nostrils. It fell onto the ground, and the wagon slipped back. The man walked up to it. You are going to lie down, devil, are you? We'll see you don't take it too easy. So that's obviously a fairly sort of horrific story, but my main point is, in summary, that's in me. That capacity for cruelty or brutality is in me, and I'm not sort of being melodramatic or over the top. And for me, that is it's a one example, but it's an example of the nitty gritty of the human condition in terms of this anger and precisely what Jeremy describes in the portion I read out. And I know when I first read this aspect of Jeremy's insight sort of more than 30 years ago, it deeply resonated with me. And I could deeply sort of empathise, if you like, with that sense of power and relief that Jeremy's talking about there in terms of not only attacking the innocence of animals, but the implied criticism and the sense of, in the absence, like Jeremy says, in the absence of that explanation of why we, in our upset state, are fundamentally good, seeking a sense of relief from that implied criticism through superiority, through dominating, through, in effect, what it manifests as cruelty. And I think one thing that's just so important is that little bit that Shreiner says at the first part of that, just prior to where she begins to recount the story, where she says, a convict or a man who drinks seems something so far off and horrible when we see him, but to himself he seems quite near to us and like us. We wonder what kind of a creature he is, but he is just we, ourselves. We are only the wood. And what I understand that to mean is that this human condition, this capacity for brutality, is common to all of us. And we've got all these elements of civility and restraint and trying to manage it, but fundamentally it resonates in me deeply in my own my own behaviour and tuning into my psychology. And I think that's really important as well, is that I know deeply in myself that this is not some sort of savage instinct or something that's innate in me. It's coming from up here. It's a psychological anger, it's frustration. Even those terms that we use like frustration, power, relief, that's got nothing to do with our conscience or our instincts. It's to do with our psychological turmoil, the duress of the human condition. And for me, although that is an horrific little snapshot of, and we sort of recoil away from that, and it is dreadful, and we wouldn't want to acknowledge that in ourselves. And prior to having explanation of the human condition, there's no way we could actually do that. And for me, if you like, this acknowledgement and explanation of attacking innocence is just one of the powerful examples of why Jeremy Griffith's explanation of the human condition is sort of singular or unique, if you like, in the sense that it's the only thing that can stop the madness of the human condition. It's it's the only thing that's going to the root cause of what is driving that anger, that frustration, that need for relief, that need for power. And as Jeremy precisely says, it's this line sums it up. The exhibition of power was a substitute for explanation. And that's the point for me, that there's no other inquiry that's going on out there that is actually dealing with this nitty-gritty, that's really getting to the bottom of the wood heap about what we're capable of and why we're capable of it, and that it's coming from this psychological base. And in that sense, that's why for me it makes complete sense that this is unique, it is singular in the sense that it is the only thing that's getting to the root cause of what's driving that need for relief and power. And through addressing that root cause, it actually, this is the explanation that is the substitute for power. And it's if you like, through that explanation, that makes redundant that need for power, and that's fundamentally what's destroying the planet. And it's because of that this information is unique, or that idea that it is the only thing that can, if you like, stop humanity going over a cliff, destroying itself. And importantly, that's me saying that's not a dogma. You can, all of us, I swear to God, you can read this book, and as the layers of denial get peeled back, you can experience the truth of it. You can validate it for yourself, what I'm actually saying there. So you don't have to sort of take it as a given. You can actually digest this information and arrive at that conclusion yourself. And if you like, off the back of that, it's because of that. It is the one thing that can stop humanity going over a cliff. That's what makes, to put it in perspective, what's the conversation, the discussion that's going on in this Facebook group. It is, and this is literally the case. It is the most important thing going on the planet, and by a country mile. And so, I really encourage you to keep digesting, keep questioning. After you've absorbed some of the earlier material, I definitely encourage that you get into Freedom, The End of the Human Condition. There's an immense amount of information in there. And as I say, I just wanted to share my experience of how this one aspect of Jeremy's explanation deeply resonates, and recognising that in myself. So yeah, I hope you get something out of that. Thanks very much.